I will explain nothing to Chipe. Now, I am no longer a member of the society. Is that understood?
Is understood, but not agreed to.
Over the course of several decades, Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee have been able to captivate audiences all around the world with their spectacular performances. However, behind the scenes, there was a competition that exemplified an age, and the tension that was building up was just beginning to boil over. The stories of two significant personalities in the area of martial arts are going to be discussed today that we are going to go over. The horrible truth behind Chuck Norris's historic feud with none other than Bruce Lee is about to be revealed by Norris, who is 83 years old. Take a deep breath. Observe this video in order to acquire knowledge about the truth that has never been disclosed. In order to have a complete understanding of the unique connection that existed between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, it is necessary that we first reveal the horrifying truth about the events that led up to Bruce Lee's passing. It is impossible to argue against the fact that Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris are two of the most legendary martial artists and action performers in the history of the globe. The question that needs to be answered is how this extraordinary connection managed to come into existence, which ultimately resulted in one of the most memorable confrontations in the history of film. The narrative started in the late 1960s, as both Lee and Norris were beginning to establish themselves as significant personalities in their respective fields. This was the time when the narrative was first introduced. Due to the fact that Bruce Lee had already acquired a certain level of celebrity in Hong Kong with his first two films, The Big Boss and Fist of Fury, he was eager to broaden his horizons at that time. On the other hand, Chuck Norris was a karate world champion who had won a significant number of events and championships in their respective countries, including the United States of America as well as other countries. Norris was triumphant in the All-American Karate Open Championship in 1967, while Lee performed a magnificent performance of martial arts. They had never before crossed each other's paths until this moment. After the occurrence, they made the decision to come together and discuss various strategies for fighting and martial arts. This was due to the fact that they both admired the skills that the other possessed. During the course of their chat, they came to the realization that they both had a significant interest in martial arts. Together, they came to the conclusion that they would practice martial arts in Lee's garden. Lee, who is well known for his enthusiasm to learn from others, was able to absorb the vast amount of information that Norris imparted to him, particularly in the field of high-kicking techniques. Norris imparted to Lee the importance of possessing the ability to kick any place, particularly in circumstances in which an adversary does not provide protection for their head position. Up until this point, Lee had been of the opinion that a martial artist should never kick past the waist. After a little more than 6 months of training, Lee's high kicks had reached the same level of expertise as Norris's at the same time period. During this time, Norris was utterly captivated by Lee's speed, power, and philosophy. He was completely attracted to him. It was from the very beginning that Lee accepted the revolutionary form of Jeet Kune Do that he had developed. Jeet Kune Do is a martial art philosophy and style that Lee himself had devised. The values of simplicity, directness, and freedom are what set Jeet Kune Do apart from other forms of martial arts. Jeet Kune Do is a martial art that enables practitioners to overcome the restrictions of traditional martial arts. Jeet Kune Do is distinguished by a number of qualities, one of which is the concept of interception. This concept involves opposing the assault or purpose of the opponent before it reaches its intended target by intercepting it. It is necessary to possess qualities such as the ability to adjust, speed, and timing, in addition to heightened awareness. Practitioners of Jeet Kune Do are taught a wide range of techniques, such as punches, kicks, elbows, knees, traps, locks, and throws, in order to acquire the skill to intercept. These methods are used in the training process. In addition to being a form of martial arts, Jeet Kune Do is a form of martial arts that highlights the need to have an open mind, be flexible, be creative, be self-aware, and work on improving oneself. As a result of Norris's appreciation for Lee's dedication and zeal, the bond that existed between Norris and Lee became even more robust. In the year 1972, Lee made a request to Norris to be a part of his third picture, which was titled Way of the Dragon and was also directed and written by Lee. The pinnacle of their friendship, which had been going on for 5 years. This partnership was the culmination of their friendship. The great talent and charisma of both Lee and Norris were on full show in this Hong Kong martial arts action comedy film, which went on to become a huge success at the box office. The film was a huge success. There is a teenage martial artist from Hong Kong named Tang Lung, who serves as the main character in the book, The Way of the Dragon. He is a young man who travels to Rome in order to provide assistance to his pals in his efforts to protect their restaurant from a deadly criminal lord. A renowned showdown between Tang Lung and Colt, the hired assassin of the criminal lord, who is represented by Norris, serves as the film's climax and brings the story to a close. The Colosseum is the location where this confrontation takes place. The Way of the Dragon was not only a commercially successful film, but it also solidified its position as one of the most influential films in the annals of martial arts history. Not only did it feature some of the most iconic fight scenes in the history of cinema, but it also served as a demonstration of Bruce Lee's perspective on the need of adaptability, invention, and self-expression. The extraordinary friendship that existed between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris not only left an indelible mark on the world of martial arts and movies, but it also serves as a testament to the strength of the relationship that exists between the two individuals. It is a tribute to the force of mutual respect, shared passion, and unflinching determination. The idea that Bruce Lee, who is widely regarded as the most influential martial artist of all time and a pop culture figure of the 20th century, played a significant role in bridging the gap between the East and the West is universally accepted by the majority of people. The manner in which Asians were portrayed in American cinema underwent a significant transformation as a direct result of his profound impact. Lee revealed that Asian men are not emasculated, childish, or domestic servants, but rather that they are rugged, powerful, and alluring. As stated by Yi Seung-chung, a professor at the University of Michigan, Lee's research was published in the journal Asian Studies magazine. This represented a substantial break from the widely held stereotypes that are associated with Asian men. One of the new cliches that surfaced as a consequence of his prominence was that of the artist who specializes in martial arts. It was the sudden and unexplainable passing of Bruce Lee, who was only 32 years old at the time of his death, that caused shockwaves to be sent all across the world. A great number of questions that have not yet been answered have been left behind as a result of this catastrophe. During a session for Enter the Dragon that took place on May 10, 1973, in a film studio in Hong Kong, Lee experienced a breakdown. He was subsequently transported to the hospital for treatment after the incident. Following the completion of treatment for his ailment, it appeared as though he had recovered. Lee arrived in Hong Kong the following day, on July 20, 1973, with the intention of negotiating a film idea with the American actor George Lazenby and the Chinese filmmaker Raymond Chow. There had been a little more than 2 months since Lee had departed Hong Kong at this point. Immediately after having a great conversation with Chow, Lee went to the apartment of his colleague Betty Ting Pei in order to study the screenplay. The unpleasant truth is that Lee was never able to make it to the dinner that he was supposed to attend with Lazenby. As a result, the dinner was never attended. Lee was unable to be roused from his sleep, despite the fact that Chow went to verify his well-being. At the time of Lee's arrival at Queen Elizabeth Hospital, he was pronounced dead, despite the fact that there were attempts made to bring him back to life. The untimely passing of Bruce Lee not only resulted in the loss of a legendary character in the world of martial arts, but it also left a void in the entertainment business and sparked a great deal of conjecture on the real reason for his passing. Bruce Lee was a legendary figure in the world of martial arts. Chuck Norris was one of the people who was severely affected by the death of Bruce Lee. In order to express his thoughts, he paid tribute to Lee in a number of interviews and publications following his death. It was credited to Lee that he revolutionized both the film industry and the martial arts, and Norris referred to Lee as a genius and a sensation. Additionally, he expressed his regret that he was unable to spend more time with Lee as he grew older and accomplished more. He lamented the fact that he was unable to do so. After the untimely passing of Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris continued to maintain strong contact with Bruce Lee's family, particularly with Brandon Lee, Bruce Lee's son. Despite the fact that Brandon was only 8 years old when his father passed away unexpectedly, he was able to acquire his father's passion for acting and martial arts. He went on to pursue a career in acting and made appearances in a number of well-known films, such as Showdown in Little Tokyo, Rapid Fire, and The Crow, amongst others. Chuck Norris was a significant influence in Brandon's life. He served as a mentor and a friend to Brandon, and he encouraged him to pursue his goals in both his professional and personal life. Brandon's life was significantly impacted by Chuck Norris. Brandon Lee, who was 28 years old at the time of his death, passed away as a result of a distressing accident that took place on the set of The Crow. As a result of this unfortunate occurrence, the bright future that he had been looking forward to was no longer possible. Considering Brandon to be his kid and experiencing an incredible sense of pride for him, Norris was emotionally impacted by the situation with the inadvertent shooting. While Norris was attending Brandon Lee's burial to pay his respects and express his desire that the two of them be reunited in heaven, he was struck with grief for the loss of both Bruce and Brandon Lee. He even expressed his wish that they were reunited in paradise. In spite of the way that a great number of individuals continue to be captivated by the peculiar events that surrounded the passing of Bruce and Brandon Lee, there is still a great deal of speculation going on concerning the truth that lies behind his untimely departure. Chuck Norris recently expressed his thoughts on the tragic death of his close friend Bruce Lee, which took place at a San Diego Comic-Con event. Norris was present at the event to watch a demonstration of martial arts. Norris was able to shed light on the terrible events that led to Lee's death because he was someone who was quite familiar with Lee's way of life and the health worries that he had about himself. As a result of a back injury that Lee sustained in 1968 while participating in a weightlifting routine known as Good Mornings, Norris claims that Lee suffered a ruptured disc in his spine. This occurred as a consequence of the back injury. As a consequence of the prolonged anguish and the restriction of movement that were brought about by this injury, the individual ultimately required surgical intervention and medicines in order to recover. The stubbornness and impatience that Lee possessed prompted him to continue his intense training and considerable physical activity, despite the fact that the medical professionals had urged him to rest and allow his body to recuperate in the appropriate manner. Over the course of his whole life, including his physical appearance, Norris highlighted Lee's unyielding pursuit of greatness in all aspects of his existence. With his fast metabolism, Lee made it a point to consume a considerable amount of protein in addition to supplements, like ginseng and royal jelly, in order to increase his levels of energy and general performance. He did this in order to gain an advantage over his competitors. In addition, in order to purify his body, he made it a point to consume a substantial amount of water, frequently consuming as much as 10 liters of water on a daily basis. While Lee was in Hong Kong, where he was making preparations for his upcoming film, Game of Death, he suffered from a severe headache. When he was going through this difficult time, he found solace in the actress Betty Ting Pei, with whom he shared a mutually beneficial relationship. Lee was not aware that the medication he took contained aspirin, which he was allergic to, despite the fact that he had taken the medication. In accordance with the claims, the combination of medications, vitamins, and water triggered a reaction within Lee's body, which finally led to cerebral edema, which is commonly referred to as swelling of the brain. A serious condition known as cerebral edema is characterized by the accumulation of fluid in the brain, which results in a rise in pressure within the skull. This condition can be hazardous. This has the potential to cause damage to brain cells, a reduction in blood flow, and oxygen deprivation, all of which represent a threat to the individual's quality of life and could potentially result in death. On the other hand, despite the fact that Norris's account provides a single perspective on Lee's death, it has been subjected to a variety of additional types of uncertainty. When Bruce Lee, a great figure in the world of martial arts, passed away at an untimely age, the circumstances surrounding his death have been the subject of heated discussion and controversy for a long amount of time. On the other side, The biographer Matthew Polly has supplied a new perspective that calls into question the answers that have been offered in the past and provides a glimpse into the true reason why Lee passed away that has been offered. In his book, Bruce Lee: A Life, Polly investigates the particulars of Lee's final days and offers a fresh perspective on the chain of events that culminated in his untimely passing. He also discusses the circumstances behind Lee's death. For the purpose of providing evidence in favor of his theory, he presents a wealth of facts, shedding light on significant aspects of Lee's life and health that point to the fact that heat stroke is most likely the true cause of death. One of the most important pieces of evidence that Polly has brought to light is the decision that Lee took to undergo surgery in order to have his sweat glands removed. Lee came to the conclusion that removing the sweat glands that were located in his armpits was the best way to maintain a particular appearance on screen. As a consequence of this, he was unable to maintain his natural ability to control his body temperature through the process of perspiration. Given that Lee spent a significant amount of time in Hong Kong, which is known for its hot and humid climate, this particular information becomes more relevant when seen in the context of the surrounding conditions. According to Polly, Lee is now more susceptible to the ill effects of heat exposure as a result of this surgical modification, which has established the conditions for the likelihood of a heat stroke. Polly believes that this is because the conditions have been formed. Polly comes to light an incident that took place prior to Lee's passing, in which he exhibited symptoms that were consistent with heat stroke. This is an additional item of interest that she brings to light. During the time that Lee was working on the movie Enter the Dragon, he suffered a fall, which was then followed by a diagnosis of cerebral edema. This event took place just a few weeks before he went away. Polly, on the other hand, is of the opinion that this occurrence could have been an indication of heat stroke and that the diagnosis of cerebral edema could have even been a ruse to conceal the true nature of the underlying condition. Polly draws on the opinions of medical professionals and the information that she has obtained from medical specialists in order to underline the probable connection that exists between the heat-related incident that occurred earlier and the eventual circumstances that led to Lee's death. Polly, from her point of view, also takes into consideration the circumstances surrounding Lee's final moments of life. During the month of July, when temperatures reached 9 degrees Celsius, 93 degrees Fahrenheit, Lee passed away on a day that was extremely hot. This is a reality that merits mentioning. Polly sheds light on the particulars of Lee's actions that led up to his breakdown, bringing more attention to the situation. These include the fact that he chose to lie down under a heavy blanket, and that he took a prescription that included both aspirin and a sedative. Both of these factors contributed to his condition. Through the process of putting these elements together, Polly creates a captivating narrative that illustrates how these factors may have come together to trigger a fatal heat stroke, which was further worsened by the medication's ability to conceal the symptoms. The fact that the findings of Lee's autopsy report provide credibility to Polly's claim is a particularly relevant aspect of the situation, as an example of characteristics that are compatible with the absence of insomnia, overdose, or an adverse drug reaction as potential contributors to Lee's passing. The absence of allergic responses and the existence of normal levels of medicine in his system are examples of variables that are consistent with the absence of these potential contributors. One alternate argument is that the significant swelling of Lee's brain, which was observed in the post-mortem report, lends more weight to the theory that heat was the cause of his death. This is an alternative explanation. The fact that Polly's case admits heat stroke as a plausible explanation for Lee's passing is one additional factor that lends support to her position. The opinions of medical professionals, including those of Dr. Donald Langford, are the source of this support. In the context of re-evaluating the circumstances surrounding Bruce Lee's death, the hypothesis that was suggested by Matthew Polly offers a compelling alternative to the conventional explanations that have been proposed in the past. Through methodically putting together a variety of characteristics of Lee's life and health, Polly develops a compelling argument for the idea that heat stroke was the actual cause that Lee passed away at an earlier age than expected. The Triads, a prominent Chinese organized criminal organization with a stronghold in Hong Kong and other areas of Asia, are said to have been involved in the untimely death of martial arts icon Bruce Lee, according to the triad hypothesis, which is believed to be one of the most compelling and generally debated ideas about the circumstances surrounding his untimely death. The triads are said to have been involved in the death of Bruce Lee. This theory proposes that Lee's tragic demise was ultimately brought about by his problematic connection with the triads that he maintained while he was in Hong Kong. This hypothesis is based on the contention that Lee's link with the triads was problematic. It has been asserted that Lee's unconventional approach to Chinese martial arts in his films caused the triads to feel apprehensive. They perceived his unconventional strategies and his disregard for traditional martial arts traditions as a deliberate attempt to undermine their authority. The triads interpreted Lee's films as a direct challenge to their authority, which is the reason why this scenario occurred. The difficulties that already existed between Lee and the criminal organization were further exacerbated by the fact that he engaged in aggressive confrontations with well-established martial arts masters and schools in Hong Kong. These individuals were suspected of having connections to the triads. Within the realm of martial arts, his films were regarded as a direct threat to the triads' dominance, as well as a blatant disrespect to the cultural tradition that they had established. Throughout the years, this perception has remained unchanged. One more thing that makes this scenario compelling is the fact that the triad is said to have made an effort to force Lee to give them money. Lee's refusal to comply with the triad's requests for protection money posed a direct risk to the triad's ability to maintain control over the lucrative film industry in Hong Kong. Lee, who is a very accomplished and affluent actor and producer, refused to comply with these requests, which was a direct threat to the triad's control in the industry. Furthermore, Lee's ambitions to advance his career to Hollywood and other global markets constituted a challenge to the triad's ability to wield influence over him. Their ability to do so was challenged by Lee's objectives. This may have caused them to view him as a hostile adversary who needed punishment in addition to being someone who needed to be punished. It is argued in the third component of the triad hypothesis that the individual's motivation to assassinate Lee may have been fueled by personal vendettas or difficulties with specific members of the triads. This assertion is made in light of the fact that the triad hypothesis involves three components. He may have been involved in clashes with influential individuals within the organization as a consequence of his outspoken personality and his tendency to back down from confrontations. These conflicts would have resulted in a burning fury and a drive to get revenge on those who had wronged him. There are also rumors that Lee had sexual encounters with women who were associated with the triads, such as the actress Betty Ting. These rumors have been circulating for quite some time. The members of the criminal syndicate may have been fueled with feelings of jealousy and hatred as a result of these rumors, which further increased the tensions that were already present between Lee and the triads. The method in which the triads are claimed to have organized Lee's death is also extraordinary. This is something that is similarly astounding. The concept implies that they may have employed a variety of strategies during the execution of their victims, including but not limited to poisoning, shooting, stabbing, or strangulation at some point in the process. In spite of this, the most unsettling possibility is the implementation of a technique that is commonly referred to as the death touch or dim mak. Using this method, precise blows are delivered to certain pressure points on the body, which have the potential to cause internal damage or even death. It is claimed that the triads may have engaged a skilled martial artist, maybe a competitor or a former student of Lee, to administer the dim mak either directly or indirectly, which finally led to Lee's untimely death. This is the hypothesis that has been put forward. The individuals who are in favor of the triad hypothesis make reference to a number of circumstantial pieces of evidence and testimony that appear to reinforce the legitimacy of the theory. As a result of the fact that there have been claims of death threats and acts of sabotage that have been attributed to the triads in an effort to derail Lee's film efforts. This view is given more weight by the fact that these reports have been tied to the triads. Furthermore, Lee's previous experience with cerebral edema, which is said to have been a failed attempt by the triads to carry out the dim mak method, in conjunction with his symptoms of headaches and dizziness on the day of his death. further correlates with the story that is given by this hypothesis. There is a strong correlation between the two. Additionally, the fact that Lee went to a restaurant that was purportedly owned by the triads on the day when sad events occurred amplifies the potential that he was poisoned or that he had a confrontation with members of the criminal organization. Both of these scenarios are plausible. The presence of bruises and needle scars on Lee's body after his death has been regarded as possible evidence of the dim mak method or attempts by the triads to conceal their role in his murder. This interpretation has been taken into consideration. This interpretation has been made via the use of the term potential evidence. As a result of the subsequent tragic events that took place, including the shooting death of his son Brandon Lee on a film set in 1993, as well as the mysterious disappearance or deaths of individuals associated with Lee, who may have possessed incriminating knowledge about the triads, speculations regarding their possible involvement in Bruce Lee's death gained additional momentum. In spite of the fact that the triad hypothesis could appear to be convincing, it is essential to examine it with a critical eye. This is due to the fact that the concept is purely theoretical, and there is no concrete evidence suggesting that the triads are directly responsible for Bruce Lee's passing, known as the curse that the Lee family has. The Lee family curse is one example of a peculiar and tragic history that has plagued Bruce Lee's ancestors for many years. This curse has been passed down by the Lee family. It has been a part of human history for a very long time that people have believed in superstitions and curses, and these beliefs have been handed down from one generation to the next. Within the context of this theory, the male members of the Lee family are said to be the targets of a malevolent spirit, which ultimately leads to their untimely and violent deaths throughout the course of their lifetimes. There are a number of Lee relatives who have reportedly perished as a result of this curse, including Bruce and Brandon, Bruce's son. The legend states that this curse was responsible for their deaths. On the other hand, where did this curse originate? And is there any evidence that can be used to support the existence of this curse? It is possible to trace the origins of the Lee family curse idea back to Chinese folklore and superstition, which indicates that its roots can be discovered in China. During the Tang dynasty, a powerful sorcerer placed a curse on a great general named Li Yun. Li Yun was renowned for his bravery and loyalty, and he became the target of the spell. This is the historical period that the curse is said to have originated from, according to one version of the story. The serious promise that Li Yun and his offspring would never live past the age of 33 was made by the sorcerer, so laying the framework for the disastrous end that did not come to the Lee family. According to an alternative interpretation of the story, the curse is associated with a general named Li Su, who served during the Song dynasty. A curse was placed upon Li Su by the court magician of the emperor because he had betrayed his monarch. As a consequence of this, Li Su was punished with a curse. This curse, which doomed Li Su and his successors to perish as a result of having their bodies consumed by fire or metal, further perpetuated the unfortunate legacy that would befall the Lee family for many generations to come. This tragic legacy would be passed down from generation to generation. It is impossible to deny that these stories have had an indisputable influence on the beliefs and acts of the Lee family throughout the course of history, despite the fact that it is not known for definite whether or not these stories are real, especially after the passing of Bruce's older brother before Bruce was born. Li Hui-chun and Grace Ho, Bruce Lee's parents, were extremely spiritual and superstitious. This was especially true after Bruce's older brother had passed away. Particularly after the death of Bruce's older brother, this became a reality. The family's fear of the curse's possibly damaging effects is further strengthened by the fact that there is a school of thought that claims the curse may have been responsible for the premature death of his brother. They took precautions such as referring to him as Little Phoenix, which is a feminine nickname, dressing him in clothes that are often worn by women, and even abstaining from addressing him by his original name, Junfan. All of these actions were taken in an effort to protect Bruce from the purported threat that was posed by the curse. Through the execution of these activities, the hostile spirit was led to believe that Bruce was a girl, which ultimately resulted in the liberation of Bruce from the grasp of the spirit. In addition, Bruce's parents sought the guidance of fortune-tellers and astrologers, who informed them that their son was destined to have a fortunate but dangerous future, and warned them to be cautious about his health and safety. They also cautioned them to be cautious about their son's future with regard to his health and safety. In spite of the ominous shadow that was cast by the alleged curse, Bruce Lee's unconquerable spirit led him down a path that required him to engage in both defiance and thrilling adventures. When he was 18 years old, he moved to the United States and immediately began immersing himself in the study of martial arts, as well as teaching it to others. Through the course of time, he established his very own martial arts school, which he called Jeet Kune Do. It was met with both prejudice and exceptional success when he pursued a career in Hollywood. He broke stereotypes and ended up becoming a well-known character in the film industry. His pursuit of a career in Hollywood was met with tremendous success. It is unfortunate that there are some people who believe in the Lee family curse idea and assert that Bruce's death was not merely an accident but rather a manifestation of the curse. A number of troubling coincidences have been brought to light, such as the fact that he passed away at the same age as his grandfather and that he had a dream in which he and his wife had a premonition of his own death. Both of these facts are concerning. It is also said that Bruce saw a demon in his mirrors and that he recreated comparable experiences in his films. Both of these things are said to have occurred. Another piece of evidence that lends credence to this viewpoint is the purported sightings of a haunting presence. It was the untimely passing of Brandon Lee, Bruce's son, who sadly lost his life in a freak accident while filming The Crow, that contributed to the rise in popularity of the Lee family curse idea. One more thing that adds to the already awful circumstances that surround the Lee family is the fact that Brandon's passing took place just a few days before the premiere of a movie that tells the narrative of Bruce Lee. It is possible that the Lee family is genuinely under a curse. Yet, it is also possible that these sad happenings are just a series of unlucky coincidences. As time goes on, the intriguing and horrific legacy that the Lee family has left behind continues to capture the imagination of the general public, sparking debates and discussions on the strength of belief, superstition, and the idea of destiny. When it comes to the Lee family, how strongly do you believe that they have been cursed? Are you someone who believes in superstitions and curses? Or do you believe that these occurrences are simply the product of a sequence of fortunate accidents? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments area. My family, I am grateful that you are watching. In the event that you are interested in viewing further videos that will blow your mind, be sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. When I next see you, I shall be there.